On this episode of the Leadership Hustle, we continue down the path of family business and uncover some blind spots that are unique only to family business. Hello, and welcome to the Leadership Hustle for executives whose companies are growing fast and need leaders who are ready. Hi there, and welcome back to this episode of the Leadership Hustle. I'm Andrea Fredrickson, and I'm joined with
Michelle Hill.
And we're back talking about family businesses. And this is a part of a series that we're doing because family business is, I would say, primarily who we work with. All sizes from 10 to multiple thousands. We have lots of other businesses that are not family.
Okay.
So
But typically privately held.
Almost always privately held. That's the group that we work with. And so today, like with many of our other episodes, we're going to talk about blind spots, but this one is particularly focused on the blind spots that family business owners and families within businesses have of their family. And so as we were talking about this early on, I was reminded of how often, especially when family members disagree with each other, that maybe not consciously, but we shift back to a role that may not be the current role. So for example, I remember one day in particular when my father and I were early on in this business, our consulting business, and he and I were disagreeing in a big way. And I'm pretty sure I just saw a lens go through his eyes, and he was looking at me and talking to me as if I was his 13-year-old daughter who was grounded for 3 years because I was always in trouble, right? And so it's like he was talking to me in his dad voice.
Yes.
Whether he knew it or not, that's how I heard it, right?
And that's also the lens you were looking at.
And that was the lens I was looking through was, he's talking to me like he's my dad, and I'm his 13-year-old daughter, and this isn't going to end well in our 30s, right? My 30s anyway. And so I think that, family members within the business don't recognize some of these blind spots that we have
definitely.
and what's going on. So
well, and so of the blind spots, because I think you can go different angles here. So that scenario, we've got blind spots where it's father-daughter partners. And then you've got blind spots that are going to lean into family owner, parent, and their children coming in, not partners, because that's still even more different, right?
Sure.
I would say a little more the more traditional, maybe more common, not traditional, is going to be the family parent and their children entering into the business, right? So what are some of those blind spots or challenges, especially when we think about, because you've worked with several family businesses from small to startup, getting pulled in, whether it's through their legal counsel or whatever, to we've been pulled into quite large family-owned businesses as well.
Right.
What are those challenges, like your top 3 or 4
top 3 or 4. Okay.
And I'm not going to count. But
Oh, okay. Here's the ones that come to my mind.
the blind spots,
right?
Yeah, the ones that they just don't see coming, right? It's like, where the hell did that come from?
Right. So I would say one of the top blind spots is that they don't realize that by bringing in the family, the non-family members, employees, are going to be confused or unclear about how to treat this family member.
Yes.
So whether or not the non-family member, who's reporting to who, who's giving them direction, who can push back? Can you have that conversation? Or do I need to go tell mom or dad?
Yeah.
It's like, what do I do here?
Because it will feel that way.
Right.
I'm going to go, get you in trouble.
And more often than not, there's one of two things that happen. The employee who is finding the confusion or the disrespect or the I don't know what to do with this is going directly into, and they're very direct and they're saying, Michelle, I don't know what the F to do with this. You do something with your kid because I don't know what to do with it. If you don't take care of it, this is not going to work out right.
Because we've let it build. That's the other.
Because we've let it build too much.
Emotions
right?
now are taking over.
Yeah. Or the other is everybody just talks about it. It's the elephant in the room.
It's the huge elephant in the room. We might have multiple elephants, actually.
Right? And so no one says anything. People come into work and they get oriented by the orientation person, and then they said, and this is how you talk to the kid. And if you see this happen, just let it go. That's just how it works. And you just set the new rules.
Yes, these rules.
And they call it the family tax, right? This is how we take care of this. So I would say that's probably the biggest one. And
and what's the consequence? I mean, as it being a blind spot to the owner, what's the consequences for that, of that blind potential, not always.
So if it's a true blind spot, they literally don't know this is happening or not paying attention. No one's bringing it to them, or it's coming in a way that
because people won't bring it to them necessarily.
They will not, because it's family. Yeah. It's emotional.
Yeah,
right?
Everyone knows, well, that's like sacred ground.
So you're jeopardizing the morale of your company. Mm-hmm. So you've shifted the culture of your company regardless. Okay. You've also probably jeopardized the ability to fulfill as many goals as you want to, because people are holding back or they're having to create workarounds.
Yes.
And not that those things don't happen in other businesses without family involved. This is something that feels like I can't do anything about this, and the psychological safety is non-existent in that area. They may be able to argue or debate or challenge on professionalism or professional business discussions, but when it comes to whether or not junior, male or female, hit their mark or showed up to work or followed protocol or did behavior unbecoming or whatever it happens to be, it's like, nope, hands off. And so you've shifted the culture of your business, and you don't even know how that happened.
Yes. Yeah. As soon as you said that one about the unacceptable behavior, I can think of a situation we were working with, and there was the son, daughter, whatever it was. There was some unacceptable behavior that was excused all the time, and people didn't feel safe to disagree or to confront or whatever, and then everyone starts doing CYA. We know what that is.
Right.
And time gets just absorbed to cover your CYA. We're not productive. Right. So
I think there's another blind spot, and that is either their super high expectations of family or their lack of expectations or accountability for their family members. And so when they don't have the same expectations of their family, over or under, that they do of their non-family member employees, what you've done is you've created a set of classes of people, and those classes of people then, we're always trying to adjust to be equal. And so the ability...
That's social
norming.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so if I don't think if junior's not performing, it's like, well, I can adjust my performance to meet junior's performance. It's like, yeah, but they hold you accountable and you get written up, but junior doesn't get written up, or they don't get reprimanded because I'm afraid if as their manager, I do, that I'm going to get chewed out by the owner. I'm going to get ostracized, right? I'm not going to get in the loop. I'm not going to get communicated with. I'm going to have the owner's going to start keeping score against me as their manager. That's the point.
Yes, and I think there's also that fear of, as it could be a result of this, that fear of where do I have to grow in the organization,
right? Because
the children come in and are going to take potentially an opportunity that normally that I'm striving for, right?
Most of the time when I'm working with second generation, so founding generation, I call that first, whatever it happens to be. Second generation is typically, kids of the organization. When I'm talking to them, or even third generation, one of the things we talk about is what expectations do you have as it relates to performance versus the rest of the company? Those who succeed and who are most respected tend to have higher expectations of themselves, because they want to make sure there's no question that they have earned the position that they have. And do the parents recognize that sometimes that generation will work extra hard, maybe not spending as much time with their family as they should, maybe sacrificing in some way. It's like, don't over-sacrifice. Let's make sure that we're working smarter,
yes,
right? Not harder, and that you've earned it. Like in some cases, you had the opportunity to apply for this role and got it because the peers interviewed and they agreed. Now, there's always speculation on did we hire them regardless of whether we thought they could do it or not. But the kid, that person, in most cases that are most successful, they are working way harder to prove that.
Yes.
Now, are there organizations where the kids are entitled and they feel as though it's like, well, I'm family, I can do this, I can come in late, I can slough off on my goals, I can do those things. And the parent has a blind spot for not putting the rules into place up front. And so how do they treat their
Well, and even diving deeper, so what might be some of the assumptions that you bump into, assumptions or blind spots, that maybe that second generation who is potentially going to be entering might have?
So, this isn't answering your question yet, but I remember this story where this son and father and the son's friend, they were at this golf course, and the son was taking his friend to the snack counter and said, "Get whatever you want, I'm rich." And dad's behind him and he taps him on the shoulder. It's like, "I'm rich, you're not." Right? And so I think that there's some blind spots or some assumptions that because I'm the family that I have the same authority and I have the same speaking and I have the same decision making and I have the same benefits as all the other family members in the company. It's like, no. If the ownership and they have put some things into place that are good, they put some rules into place that says you come in and you're sweeping the floor. That's what we're starting with. Or you're going to work the shop floor and you're going to work the different roles in the shop floor so you understand this is what we do and how we do it. We're going to make sure that you don't have a spending allowance that's better than or bigger than somebody else. Like, just because your family doesn't mean that you get a family truck, right? Or
it
company truck.
With the position,
right?
Not the family.
Exactly. It's aligned with the business and the rules that come along and the position that they hold rather than the outside. Now, if you as dad and mom have always decided you're going to buy a vehicle for your kid and that's what you're going to do, that's fine, but it better not say the company name on the outside, right?
That's very true. Well, and what even like between siblings? I know you get to have that fun working with companies that have multiple siblings in there. What might be some assumptions or blind spots among the siblings? Because we always have the firstborn versus the lastborn, and then the poor middle child. I mean,
the poor middle child.
What happens and what are those things you see?
So. And these blind spots can be, or assumptions can be, both from the current generation who is in charge to the up and coming generation or the next generation. So I have a client right now that, and if you think this is you, it's not you, right? I've got multiple clients doing this. So.
It's not of you.
But I've had multiple clients and still do have clients where dad is the owner of the business and there's only one son and they want their son to be the person in charge. Mm-hmm. In one case, the son wants to be in charge, and in one case, the son has no desire whatsoever to be in charge. That's not his goal.
Or to even be in the business.
Well, one doesn't even want to be in the business, right? And I've got still another who doesn't want to be in charge. It's like, I don't want that responsibility. That's not my gift, right? I am good in the role that I'm in. I'm good in the management position that I'm at. I don't want to be on the senior leadership team. I want to work here. I want to do the role that I'm in, but don't put me on the senior exec team because that's not my gift. And two, I do not want to lead this organization. And sometimes it's becoming less prevalent. I will see specifically if it's the father-owned business or the male-owned business, that they are not looking at their daughter to be the next gen. Now, that's becoming less prevalent, I will have to say. As I do different research, there's a lot more where it's like, who's the most talented and who should be the right? First generation, I know when I started working with my father, he and I were in business. I mean, I'm not that much older than my siblings, but when we started talking about business, like, yeah, I want to be in business with him. Did we realize that we were going to have my brother and sister in there? Eventually, probably. But did they want to take direction from their big sister again? Or versus Andrea, the co-owner, or eventually the partner of the owner of the business? And so we've had to work through all of those different categories of exercises. And are people in the business today? Yes and no. Do we have our own separate businesses? Yes and no. There's, we're all part of different parts of it. But I think there are the assumptions of who should be and who shouldn't be, and maybe even some frustration among the siblings as to, in most organizations, who should be and who shouldn't be.
What's one piece of advice that you'd give to an owner to help reduce that friction between their children? Because I think ultimately we want our children to care about each other and want to, and grow up and have their children together or whatever. But now that this family business is in there, sometimes that can separate and damage those relationships where they're not repairable.
Right.
So what might be like just one thing that you would suggest?
So first and foremost, the family and their spouses have to learn how to disagree and not hold the grudge. So conflict management, conflict resolution, training is super, super important. Having a third party that can mediate if necessary, because there are sometimes family members may disagree, but they're not going to be assertive about it. They're going to be passive aggressive about it. And so they're sabotaging things, or they're making snide comments, or they're getting other coworkers involved in the drama between family. So learning how to disagree and then let it go. And I'm saying that bring the spouse along with them, because pillow talk is a big saboteur of relationships within businesses.
Oh, so go more low on this pillow talk real quick.
So oftentimes you might have a family member, next gen, doesn't make any difference, family member in the business, and they may talk a little bit about the business, or if they do talk about the business, they might complain about something or just mention it. Well, that's what the spouse will hear, right? Or if the siblings aren't treating each other well, or the siblings and the founding group, there's a disagreement. Pillow talk is that person who is in the ear of that Gen 2 or that next gen person.
Yeah.
Well, understand, now they're caught between their spouse and the family.
Yes.
And that is so unfair, even though the spouse's intentions are so good. They want to protect their family member. They want to protect their family, their next gen. They want to protect their future. And it's probably going to come across as sabotaging the relationship, sabotaging the direction of the business, sabotaging some kind of decision. So as we work with those family businesses, we're really, really hyper aware of commenting about, yes, you can have conversations. Recognize we need to have this, we need to make sure people can have both sides of the conversation and see both sides of those issues, because ultimately, yes, it is for the future, but putting a person between their family and their spouse never wins. Never, 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 right?
Yes.
And I think that we spend a lot of time with that. The other part of this that you mentioned is like when we're talking about bringing, differences between family members and maybe even succession. I advise people to bring in specialists or third parties that can do the interviews and what's expected for a position, and educating what's going to be needed for the next succession or the strategic plan for the company, because if we're making a decision, well, we make all decisions on emotion. Let's start there.
Yeah.
We make all decisions on emotion. This one is even more intense, and then we justify it with logic.
Yes.
This one is so emotional, and it will last for generations. And we got the Hatfields and the McCoys, right?
Yes, yes.
And so we have to, having somebody else come in and help people learn how to have these disagreements, how to recognize the other side of things, but also to bring in the professionalism into an organization as we move forward.
Yes. Well, and I don't want to cut us off, but we're probably getting to that time again. And I really want to go into like fairness and accountability because those are things that I know come up, but we'll hold that for another episode.
Yeah. So this is fun. These episodes on family business, most of the businesses in our country are privately held, and even though they may not start off as family businesses, they tend to drift in that direction. So if you didn't listen to this previous podcast on family business, check that out because it's all a little bit about those family businesses that transition, the private businesses that transition into family business. Thanks for joining us on this episode. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss another episode.